So it's recording now. Thank you again for sharing your story, because as we had already talked, I've interviewed other people on Fort Knox, military, who have seen them, even the story about them killing 4 of them not too long ago. So I know that area is a very hot area. All around that area, Bullitt County, Meade County, Hardin County. I could just show you my private map of dozens of eyewitnesses who've seen them, park rangers, law enforcement, sheriff deputies, all around that area. So there's something to do with that area.
I know there's an abundant food source there. I've seen elk, deer, lots of turkeys. I mean, actually, the area we're in when we saw it and dealt with it, I mean, there was a massive field, probably a football length, just full of turkeys. So, I mean, there's an abundant food source there. I know that for sure. Obviously, they probably maybe feel protected because it is a military installation. There's a fence around it. And you can't really get in there unless you're military or work on base. So
tell me, if you can, the approximate date, time, what you guys were doing, and anything that you remember.
Okay. So I was an E5 in the Army. I was stationed at Fort Knox from October 2009 till February 2011. In the spring, and I believe it was April of 2010, we had a 2-week brigade exercise to help train incoming personnel and stuff who were getting ready to deploy again that fall. So they did a 2-week exercise out, and we were in the area of Yano Range. I'm not sure what's called now. Obviously, this was in 2010. Yano Range is in the southeast quadrant of Fort Knox, pretty close to Lebanon Junction, I believe, is where it was at. So we were out there. The brigade was about 2 miles away. We were dealing with ammunition, live and either live ammunition and blank ammunition. So we had to be in an area away from everybody else. But my team, which was myself and 3 others, were set up on Yano Range, about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from everybody else. So we were secluded. We set up in an old ammo distribution area out there. We were set up. We got out there pretty early. I believe it was a Sunday. The exercise was starting on Monday. So we were up there got out there Sunday, started setting up, kind of putting where we were putting our live ammo, kind of putting, some ammunition stayed on trucks, but we backed them behind this cement platform about 4 foot up in the air so we can kind of hand them off to the companies when they came and drew ammunition and whatnot. That was Sunday. Kind of eerie out there anyway. I don't know if you've ever been on Fort Knox, especially out in the wilderness. Some of the wildlife's just huge. I'm from Ohio, grew up in the country. One of my guys is from Pennsylvania, grew up in the country. Another guy was from North Carolina in the woods, and the other guy was from northern Ohio up by Cleveland. So he's not too familiar with the woods, but he has some wilderness aspect. So we're out there just kind of making camp, set up in the old ammo shack, also outside. We had no protection or anything like that because we were in an isolated area. So if anybody came out in a vehicle out that way, we would be able to see the headlights and come out and meet them, how they come out for drawing ammunition and whatnot.
Can I ask, were you guys in tents, or were you just sleeping on the ground?
We were sleeping, so we had 2 deuce-and-a-half trucks. Once we downloaded one truck with ammunition onto the cement platform, we were sleeping in the back of the truck.
Okay.
So, but we had a cover and stuff like that. So that was Sunday afternoon. The date's not 100% positive. I know it was about April because it was pretty warm outside. We just had our sleeping bags and whatnot. Nothing too god awful. Proceeded to set up. At night, we started playing like some cards, whatnot, and the thing just kind of dying down. We ate, dinner out there, everything out there. I communicated everything via cell phone at the time. And then that night, you know, because we did have live ammunition, uh, we two of us stayed up and we were doing like 6 hour rotation type stuff on because live ammunition can't go down in case something someone does steal. Because in the leading up to this, a week prior to going out to the exercise, we were told by our command that we were told that they haven't used that Yana range for ground troops in quite a while. That they went out and redid some of the range towers and put new technology in to kind of see pinpoint accuracy of where they were dropping mortars and stuff like that, kind of zone in the range officials and stuff like that. Leading up to 3 days of us getting out there, they had 3 or 4 towers get ransacked. And they were thinking, oh, some of the locals came on, were stealing or ransacking. They weren't happy that we were out there. And I'm like, why would the locals come on base, first of all, ransack a tower, but not take anything? So that kind of raised the red flag and not really thinking about it. I have a background in law enforcement with military police and the Air Force. And then I had a break-in service where I worked at a sheriff's department. And then I came back in the Army, but I was dealing with the ammunition at that time. So I like kind of threw a red flag. Like, why would you come on base to ransack millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, but not take any of it? It didn't make any sense. So, all right. So then we're out there. So that night, myself and Specialist Snyder were sitting in the vehicle, just kind of talking, had the doors kicked up. It was a very nice spring night. Sitting there talking, you can see Lebanon Junction off a couple miles in the distance, I-65 area out that way. You can see it. We're just kind of sitting there talking back and forth. And then out of nowhere, like dead silence. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a full moon. You can kind of see with a full moon out, you can see out in the distance a little bit. But you could hear a pin drop, and I've never heard that before. Like, I know they say when predators come in, the force kind of dies down a little bit, but this was eerie. Like, even Snyder was like, "What is going on?" I was like, "I don't know. I've never heard that before." Like, we were just on here, but we just continued to talk. About 15, 20 minutes into us talking, I'm sitting on the passenger side. He's sitting in the driver's seat, and he taps me. And he goes, "Do you see that?" And I turn to my right, and about 25 feet up off a slight slope going up into the mountains, there was a clearing, and there stood something I've never seen before, ever. It was probably, I estimate, between 8 to 9 feet. And I'm a pretty big dude as it is, and this thing was twice as wide as I was, shoulder wise. And it just stood there and watched us. And I was like, every hair in my body stood up. I couldn't really talk. I got to the point where, for safety, I grabbed my M4 and I slid it up onto my lap and I jacked around into the chamber. Never did point it at it, but I had it there in case it took a step towards us because the thing was obviously bigger than us. And it probably 7 to 10 seconds, and it just turned and went up the mountain with ease. I mean, full stride up the mountain with ease. And I was like, what in the hell was that? And the rest of the night, we had the doors closed on the trucks. Him and I didn't say anything to anybody. We just kept it to ourselves. Like, he was scared. Like, he was a smoker, and he didn't even get out of the car the rest of the night. He's like, I ain't doing this. So we're sitting there. The next day, like I said, we had no defense mechanisms out there because it was just us. I actually got on the horn at 8 a.m., called for 2.5 miles of sea wire, had it all come out. We wrapped it all the way around the camp, triple strand. So 2 rows all the way around and then a row on top. And behind our ammo shack was an old cement ravine from water coming down off the mountain. And that's probably 2, 3 foot deep, probably 4 foot wide. And we had it on the edge of that. So if anything was on the other side, they would literally have to step across and over 3 strands to come into our side. So that was day one. I'm like, I looked at Snyder and I'm like, we're not saying nothing to anybody. I had a secret clearance at the time. I think he had a secret clearance. I was like, we're not saying anything. Just gonna play it out. So the next morning we had ammo draw from some of the units. They came and got a bunch of stuff. Later on that evening, we were all by ourselves again, and we just started hearing like deep howls I've never heard before. Um, some tree knockings we heard. We heard at one point, well, like we're all trying to drown it out. Like, what is that? What is that? And everybody else is asking. I'm like, I don't know, man. I've never heard it before. We're out here in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, maybe someone's playing the prank on us, whatever. And it got to the point where it sounded like tree branches getting just snapped. And I'm like, what is that? I mean, it was loud, very close. I'm like, I have no clue. So Tuesday morning, we wake up and come out and getting ready for the draw. And one of our guys goes around the back, just kind of stretches his legs. And there was these line of trees, probably 15 foot, it's about 6 inches in diameter. And they were snapped. About four of them were snapped, about 8, 9 foot up in the air, just snapped in half all the way down. I was like, okay, this is getting real. Still only myself and Snyder knew about it. And then come Wednesday, myself and one of the other privates, we had to go do a mortar drop on a different range about 15 minutes away. And it's one lane up to the top of the mortar, the range where it's at. It was like you had to go up a mountainside, drop it up there. We're dropping our ammo or mortars. And on the way back down, it's us coming down in the deuce. And there's the colonel and a couple officers are behind us in the Humvee. As we're coming down, Lee's talking to me a little bit, and he looks over and goes, "What the hell is that?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I turn, and there's this big ass tree, and something was holding it and kind of peering out to the side of us, on the side of the mountain. I'm like, "Stop." He goes, "I can't. The colonel's behind me." I was like, "Stop." He goes, "I can't. The colonel's behind me." And we just keep going. So that's the first time Lee interacted with it or saw something of that nature. And I was so mad we couldn't stop. We probably would have stopped had the colonel not been behind us, but the colonel probably like, "What the hell you guys stopping at if we're stopping?"
Yeah.
So we get back, been a long day, dropping some ammo. We get back to the range we were at previously on Yano, and while we were gone, we had 50,000 rounds of 50 cal ammunition and still crates. And then I don't know if you ever held a crate of 50 cal.
No.
They're heavy. They're about 50 pounds ish, roughly picking them up. They're 2 cans of 100 rounds each. And the only way to hold it is by your fingertips on the edge of the crate. So you just will grab them and hand them off. That's what you're doing. Pretty fast. And I had them download about 20,000 rounds. We had someone coming to pick up about 20,000 rounds on Thursday morning. So I wanted them downloaded easily to get out so we can keep the rest, keep them separated. I get back and they're not done. I'm like, what you guys been doing all day? And Snyder's like, "You ain't gonna believe us. You're not gonna believe us, Rob. You're not gonna believe us." I'm like, "What happened?" He goes, "I'm gonna let Elliot tell you." I was like, "Okay." And Elliot's the quietest guy in the world. Like I used to joke that we could drive down the road and I forget he's in the back seat because he's so quiet. So I'm like, "All right, Elliot, what happened?" He goes, "I don't know." I was like, "Well, tell me in your own words what happened." He goes, "Snyder was on the truck. I'm on the platform. Snyder's handing me crates and I'm stacking them like you want us to do." And he goes, "I took the crate and I turned and this figure caught my sight." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "About 150, 200 yards out, I see this massive figure walk slowly while turning and looking at us across the field." I go, "From which direction?" He goes, "From the mountainside across an open field to like a creek or a small riverbed." And it got on that bank and turned around and sat there and watched us. And I'm like, "It just watched you?" He goes, "It just watched us." And I go, "What happened after that?" He goes, "About 5, 6, 7 minutes went by. He got up and ran right back into the woods." He goes, "And we've been kind of just sitting here trying to go over notes about what happened." I was like, "Well, what did it look like?" He goes, it was big. He goes, "From 200 yards out, it was massive, enough to have some detail." He goes, it didn't have like a neck turn like a human. It just kind of had that turn of his head, kind of like a ape in the zoo, where it kind of turns and looks at you, but doesn't really have a neck turn on it. He goes, had long, massive arms, massive legs, and it just sat there and looked at us. He goes, I asked Snyder what happened. He goes, well, when I handed it off, he goes, I handed off to Elliot. He turned to stack it. I grabbed another crate and turned. I was like, come on, Elliot, what are you looking at? He said he's still holding his crate because he's frozen solid, like he can't believe what he's happened. So he held this 50 cal crate, and they're heavy. And he's sitting there holding it going, I don't know what I'm looking at here. So that was 3 days now, and I'm like, none of us are getting any sleep. But by this time, none of us are getting any sleep. Me and Snyder weren't sleeping anyway after Sunday night. Wednesday night, nobody got any sleep. Thursday, we're all just kind of sitting there, wired. Lieutenants come out to draw ammo, and they're like, what's wrong with you guys? Just trying to blame it on the exercise, lack of sleep, stuff like that. That was Thursday. Friday, some range officials just kind of came through and did like a drive-by, and now joking, Snyder just kind of joked with him. He goes, hey, you guys ever see anything crazy out here that you can't explain? And they kind of laughed, jokingly laughed it off, but you can tell that they were serious about it. Like, trying to be like, ha ha, no, I don't know what you're talking about, and drove off. About 2 to 4 hours later, it came down from command that we're not allowed to go into any woods by ourselves. We had to go everywhere with a 2-person concept. They kind of limited the activity, and I'm like, that's crazy. We're on a military exercise on a military installation, and now you're telling us we can't go into the woods or do anything by ourselves, like any kind of commands. It's pretty much limited what we could and could not do. They almost limited it to strictly just range times, range exercises. That was it. Everything else got canceled.
Wow.
And then we were supposed to be out there for 2 weeks. They ran it until probably Monday morning. Then they just canceled the exercise altogether and pulled everybody back in. And when we got called back in to the base, my commander and first sergeant grabbed me and brought me into the office and asked me what happened. And I had to tell them the same story I just told you. And they're like, well, you're under investigation until further notice. I'm like, for what? But they kind of just isolated me from my 3 guys, took them and they asked them, and they all told the same story that I told, except for when we were apart. Like, if I wasn't around, they told their side, obviously, but if we were all together, they told the same thing we all. And they asked the CID commander at the time, and the CID commander's like, he goes, they saw something. I don't know what they saw. He goes, but they saw something, because I've never had everybody tell exactly the same story multiple times with different directions. He goes, they've all seen something. I don't know what it is. And so we kind of came back, and actually it's kind of weird too, because I was living in Fern Creek area at the time. So when they finally cleared us to go home, I went home finally after like a week. It's kind of like just relaxing, and one of my sergeants, he calls me and goes, hey, turn on the History Channel. I turn it on, and there just so happened to be an episode of a Bigfoot sighting there along the Ohio River, just over there by like the Boston area, I think.
Yes.
Yep. So right around that area, I was like, what is going on? So it was crazy. It was surreal. I've always been like a skeptic until I had that incident. Now I've been a firm believer ever since then. And the only other time is I was in Tennessee, civilian life, Tennessee, about 4 or 5 years ago with my family. My brother and I were sitting outside, and I heard that death curdling howl once again, and I just like froze. And my brother was like, what? I was like, nothing. He goes, what? I go, nothing. You wouldn't understand. And that's the only other time I heard it. And then we were over there in the Cumberland Gap area out that way on the eastern Tennessee, out in the sticks. And that's the only other time I've ever heard that buzz curdling, where I just stopped and stood still.
Yeah.
But
So did your supervisor, I guess, your sergeant or whoever's above you, did they tell you not to talk about this?
they never told me he kind of, once I got cleared, I guess they wanted to talk to my 3 guys. They didn't really tell us not to talk about it. They frowned upon it because of our clearance. So I really didn't say anything about it. It just so happens like a couple weeks went by. They kind of moved. They were doing something where we all kept our ammo trucks, and they kind of moved them to this other range that was not being used, about a mile outside of the main vicinity of the populated area. And they had to have guards out there, so they had 2 privates out there and then a sergeant out there. And I came out to grab ammo. My counterpart, he did the most logistics. He was out there for a little bit, and I guess some of the guys was like, "Hey, what if we see Bigfoot?" He goes, "I won't joke about that. Sergeant Robinson had an encounter a couple weeks ago," and they laughed it off like he was messing with him. He goes, "Being serious, ask him about it." And I came out an hour or 2 later, and they're like, "Hey, Sergeant Rob, I heard you saw Bigfoot." And I just like looked at him, turned around, and walked off. And they're like, "Well, he's normally talkative. He and a jokester. He's not really saying anything." So they took it serious at that point. They didn't want to be out there anymore after that. But they never really told me not to talk about it. I just kind of did it on my own. Secret clearances, stuff like that. And it's been wearing on me a lot lately. Actually, I was been in contact with Snyder. He asked me about it because we were kind of talking. He actually said afterwards I can send you his number. He's willing to talk about his
Oh,
incidents out there as well. So
awesome. Yeah, I'm excited because this adds a lot of credibility to the subject. You have a reputation to uphold, and and I think people don't realize, because I interview hundreds of people, and like I said, law enforcement, military, that have a lot to lose coming forward, sharing this stuff. And people don't understand the seriousness of it. I honestly believe the creatures don't want to hurt us. And I know as soon as I share this, I'm going to get comments. "Oh, you're crazy." No, every encounter in Kentucky, I'm talking close encounters, like 10 feet away, the Bigfoot leaves, the human usually runs away, but or walks away, but the Bigfoot does not hurt the person. Now, I know there's cases elsewhere and you get bad apples or you catch one on a bad day or something, but generally speaking, I think they want to be left alone. They want to observe us, keep their distance, and that's how they survived for all these centuries.
all these years. And I'm not saying that was the same individual, because when me and Lee were coming down that mountain, it was a good 10, 15 miles away. So it couldn't have been the same time. Had to be a different one that we saw, where Elliot and Snyder saw one at the almost the same time, but a different distance. But like I feel the same way. If they wanted to harm us, it'd be no problem to harm us. That night, the first night we seen him, he was literally 15, 20 feet away. All I seen was a massive shadow. I didn't see no eye glint or anything. Just saw the massive shadow, and I'm like, "What in the hell is that?" If he wanted to harm us, he could have harmed us. There's no doubt about it. I just think he's like, "Okay, who's here in my area? Let me check them out. Let me see what they're doing," and then went off. Because when we went out to that range, I kind of asked, I was like, "Hey, if they're putting new money into the towers, it's needless to say that I got there in 2009 when they brought in the first brigade, 3rd Infantry Division, and they moved the tanker division down to Fort Benning. So I was there for the infantry guys. So they're not used to having boots on the ground over there. They were used to having tanks and whatnot. They said that was the first time. I was told, I'm not sure how accurate this is. They said it was the first time Yano Range has been used with boots on the ground since like the 60s. So all the towers had to be updated, all brand new technology. They were dropping money in it to be accurate for the mortar rounds and the choppers that we're using and stuff like that. So they wanted to be 100% accurate. So they dropped a lot of money in these towers and refurbished them and putting accuracy equipment in there. So for them to say that somebody came in and took the time to come on base, and I know there's one road that runs parallel to the base road that runs out there, and they didn't have like a full fence line up, but it still would have took some time to come out to those ranges. And if I'm coming onto a military installation to break into a range, I'm not ransacking it. I'm taking whatever's in there and trying to pawn it for money,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm,
And the towers, when you said ransacked, did something climb up the tower and ransack?
so
the top?
there's metal like stairs, almost like a fire watch tower. If you're out in like a national park, there's stairs that go up. So somebody went in, broke the door open, and went in there and just started ransacking whatever was inside. And like I said, if they haven't used it since the '60s, roughly, or maybe did use it, but there's a lot of people out there. I think a month or two prior to us going out there, they're bringing up their curiosity. If it's been sitting still for 40, 50 years, they're used to having all that private, because that whole area, actually, I got a map on my phone. I can forward it to you after this, and it has it highlighted. Yana Range is open, but no one's going to be on it because they shoot live ordnance there. But all around it is red where it's a restricted area. You're not allowed to go out there.
Yeah. That,
So, I mean, if they're in a restricted area anyway, no one's out there. There's some hunting ground out there, but it's more to the west of Yana Range that is hunting, but all like north and the east of it runs right along I-65.
yeah.
It's all restricted, and you're not getting out there.
Yep. And what's interesting, the the gentleman he's passed away now, that I took his testimony on my YouTube.
And that's got to be interested with you. That's how I reached out to you for that interview, because I was like, oh, finally someone else on Fort Knox came through. So
yeah, that gentleman there, he said that's where that was. It was the southern part of Fort Knox. It was where the tank range, where the tank range used to be, I guess. That's where his incident occurred as well.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how massive Fort Knox is. Like the bay side is, relatively small, about the size of Radcliffe maybe, but the range side is just massive, and there's so much out there. It's just unreal that anything could possibly make its way out there and be out there forever, not even known, honestly.
Yeah, and all around there, like I mentioned, Bullitt County, Hardin, Meade, just dozens of eyewitness encounters. There was in Meade County, I did a library presentation, and there's looked like an official looking gentleman in the back of the library. And I finished talking and went out to my vehicle, and he followed me out there. He goes, "Hey, I work on Fort Knox. I'm kind of like a fish and game officer for Fort Knox, so to speak." Yeah. He goes, "I have some stories to tell you." And he'd given me his card, and I was late running, to meet some friends for pizza. And I should have took the time to talk to him, because when I called him later, he didn't reply back. He must have got cold feet or something. But yeah, he said, I have some stories for you on Fort Knox. So
it's unreal. Fort Knox isn't the only place I've heard about it. Like, I have friends that were in California on like the Silver Flag Alpha used to be, it's an Air Force exercise, used to be out in California. Now it's since has moved to Creech Air Force Base in Nevada. But while they were out there on maneuvers, they've had incidents out in California.
Yeah.
And
they're not afraid of gun ranges, military bases. They know to keep just enough of a distance. And also, like you said, it's restricted. So a lot of those areas, it's kind of like a protected habitat for them, because they know there's not going to be a lot of hunters. They can keep an eye on you guys, because I think even though you guys can be very stealthy, they can see you coming, hear you coming, and they know to keep their distance from you. But they won't have a random hiker walk up on them or a hunter. So they kind of protected in a way in that area. So
I firmly believe it. Some of these national forests and stuff that are protected, some of them you can hunt in, but for a lot of them, you're not going to go too deep, like where they're going to be at. I guess there's got to be a reason that they're a lot of them are found in protected government areas. And like you said, it's almost like a sanctuary for them.
Yeah,
So.
I agree. There's so many reports I can go on and on and on near there. Like I said, over by Bernheim Forest, two park rangers seen them in Bernheim. Sheriff deputy seen them next to Bernheim. His whole family has seen them next to Bernheim. And then you go up to Meade County. I just took a report this year or last year of he was, I think, a school teacher, high school teacher with his kids, saw a Bigfoot right across Dixie Highway there, broad daylight. And I did the full report on that one. Over by, where is it? Fort Duffield,
Okay.
that area.
Yeah.
There's been reports. There was a report. I remember it was the 4th of July going into Meade County near a baseball field. After the fireworks had went off, people were in their vehicles in a line trying to get out of there. And they just stood still waiting in their vehicles on this road. And the smoke was blowing over them into the woods. And a Bigfoot walked right in front of this car. And everybody saw it, just walked right.
Oh man,
walked right between the cars.
Like, this line's gonna move. Let's go.
Yeah, like, at some point they have no choice. They're forced out of their area, and they gotta move, and they don't care sometimes. They gotta move, and you see them, and it is what it is.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the second one you saw that was peeking from behind the tree. Could you see any details of its face?
All I saw, and like we were going downhill, it was just raining, so coming down off a mountaintop on a 1-lane mountainside, it was kind of, if you hit the brakes, you were just sliding because of how muddy it was. I didn't really get like a full glance out. All I know is something was holding it and looking out. I don't know. I've never seen I've seen bear do it, but I've never seen a bear when I was over there. I don't even know if there's bear around this area. I'm not 100% positive, but this thing was massive to hold. It was a massive tree anyway, but they were just peeping out and then peeped back in. It didn't look like an elongated head like a bear would have, more of a oval shape type stuff. Can't see a whole lot of detail just because we were going downhill. Couldn't really stop. We had a bunch of weight in the back anyway. I don't even think we could have stopped if we could have. As much as I wanted to stop, I don't think Lee wanted to stop anyway. He's the one driving, so
Yeah,
because we got to the bottom hill and he was like, "What in the hell was that?" I was like, "I don't know, man. I don't know what it was." But it didn't look like it was. I've seen bear before. They have them ears that are distinctive off of it. This didn't have ears on the top of its head. Didn't have the elongated snout like a bear would have. I don't know what it was. I didn't see a whole lot of detail to it.
What about a shoulder or arm? Like,
Didn't really see a shoulder. It was just more like if I was standing behind a tree, tied to my body weight, and I grabbed a hold of it and kind of peeked out like this, is what I saw. I didn't see a shoulder. Almost it was like it had it and like reached its head out. It didn't show a shoulder. All I saw was like the side of the head, maybe one eye looking, peering out. I'm like, what? And just off we went. And like I said, we had a whole brigade out there. We had the whole brigade. Oh, I know my unit was 5 companies deep. So, we have 5 companies out there just in my unit. I can imagine, we had 6-4 out there and everybody else. So the whole brigade out there doing a 2-week exercise.
Right. So where you were when you saw him the first time, where was the next brigade or the next group of people from you?
So my brigade, my unit, my 126 is where I was at, 1st Infantry Division, 26th Regiment. They were about 1.5 miles on the other side of the mountain. So we had like the ridge come down and like a road that came in to us. So they had to go down and around that ridge and then down the road maybe 3/4 of a mile, and they were kind of staying out in this old motor pool area with tents and stuff like that. That was my regiment. They were out there. And then the other brigade, I believe, is on the other side of the mountain, probably 2-3 miles down the road from them. So they were just having exercises, trying to get them all prepared. Because when we came to Fort Knox in 2009, I would say 25% of us had been in the Army previous, just got there deployed, got stationed there either from other units around the Army. I came in from Fort Hood, and then 75% of them were all brand new soldiers, first duty station type stuff. So they all had to get trained up. We had to train them up for the probably good 8 months to a year before they actually, most of them deployed for their first deployment. And I was getting out in February 2011, so I kind of stayed back and just did some work there on the base until I ETS there in January, but and took my vacation and went home. But um, definitely once in a lifetime experience. So I'll never forget it. And I actually kept my silence probably, well, it's 14 years, and then I started talking about it openly because I had so much to lose. And being law enforcement or even security or having a high clearance, you start talking about Bigfoot, people start looking at you like you're crazy. And I didn't want to lose my clearance, didn't want to lose anything like that. And same thing, I got friends that are law enforcement and prior military. They won't talk about it openly because the ridicule that they can have, and they're supposed to maintain that high clearance rate. And but we're good eyewitnesses, that's for sure, because we have to be able to write down good reports and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. And you know, what I get excited about too is I think it's just the your credibility again, but knowing how many reports have been in this area and other areas in Kentucky. This is not the only area. There's other areas, and when I get report after report after report in the same areas, and I've had my own experiences in those same areas.
Yeah,
I know they're real, 100% real, and I would love to protect them somehow. I don't know how. I know it's going to take a body to prove it to science, the world. We can get the best video now. It's not going to matter. We really need a body to prove their existence, I believe.
yeah.
I don't know how to.
And,
I don't
and
know how to
then,
protect them in the meantime.
I mean, some people ask me, goes, man, you had your M4 there where you put a round in the chamber. Why didn't you shoot it? I'm like, I didn't feel threatened by it. Um, was I scared? Absolutely, absolutely. I was scared of things standing up on it, even if it was on the hillside. Like you could see just how tall and massive I was. Like absolutely scared, out of my mind. If it would have took one or two steps, maybe more than, and because it was a good 25 feet away. So if it would have took a couple steps, I probably would have opened fire at that point for my safety and everybody else around.
Yeah.
But it just stood there and it observed us, and then it got bored with us and it turned around and it went right up the side of that mountain with ease. I'm like, okay, not to mess around with. I'm just gonna like be even more aware and vigilant the whole night, and I did not sleep at all. I was probably by the time we got out there early Sunday morning. I think we got there like 8 a.m. and I did not even attempt to lay down until it was mid afternoon, probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I lay down for a couple hours in the back of the truck and probably didn't even really get a good sleep because I was tossing and turning the whole time. And then I did, lay down a little bit, but uh, there's one point where we did have a guy that come out. I forget his name. Maybe Snyder, when you interview him, he even might remember. He's from North Carolina, smoked all the time. I remember my first sergeant came out and goes, man, you guys look tired. This is like 5-6 days into it. And I was like, you guys look really tired. I was like, we haven't really been sleeping. Just a lot of aspect out of us. He goes, how about I'll give you a guy. He can sit here and watch all night. You guys can get some shut eye. I'm like, great. Sounds awesome. Like I said, he was a smoker, avid smoker. I've never seen this guy probably go a month or an hour without smoking at least 2 cigarettes. He stayed up, sat in the cab of the truck while the rest of us passed out. And I was like, hey man, you gotta wake us up by 07. We got a weapons draw at 08. Well, I woke up at 8 o'clock. I'm like, hey, where the hell is he? You know, he's supposed to wake us up at 7 o'clock. I thought maybe he's sleeping on post or something like that. Nope. He's in the cab of the truck. Doors closed. He had 2 seats, and then he had like a little cargo area. He's back there with like a sleeping bag up on him like this with his gun. I go, what happened? He goes, I don't know. He goes, I'm not coming out. I was like, it's daylight. You're good. He goes, nope, not coming out. I was like, come on, man, you gotta come out. He goes, finally came out. Finally, and then he just started chain smoking cigarettes. I go, what happened? He goes, saw something. Can't explain it. I'm from the backwoods of North Carolina, seen every animal there is. He goes, I can't explain this. He goes, I don't know what it was. Scared the shit out of me. I got in that cab about 2 a.m., locked the doors, and I wasn't coming out. I was like, okay, fair enough. And he didn't come back out with us the rest of the time we were out there until they pulled us back in. So,
Wow. Now, I know people will ask, and I know you know what a ghillie suit is.
oh yeah.
There's no way that this could have been somebody in a ghillie suit.
No, I went to. I had been sniper trained when I was in the Air Force with security forces and SWAT team and stuff like that. We have our own SWAT team on base, and we were training with ghillie suits. It was not a ghillie suit.
Yeah.
Not even close.
And I kind of knew that. I wanted to ask that for the viewers.
And ghillie suits too. You know, they're with their environment. This thing was it was not black. It was black because of the shadow, but Elliot and Snyder said the one they seen was black, not like a black bear, almost like it was just solid black. You know, ghillie suit you're going to use greens and browns and tans depending on the environment you're in. You're not going to use the solid black. You can pick that out. You know, perfectly walking through the woods. You're going to be able, hey, that's black over there. What is that? It's a ghillie suit. So for it to blend in, it blended in with its own environment, but it didn't have like a ghillie suit has. If you look up a ghillie suit, woodland ghillie suit, you know it's green with some browns and some tans, so it can mix in to the environment around it. It's not solid one color, unless it's like even desert. If you look at a desert one, still has multiple browns and tans that go in it. It's not just a one solid color to go with it. So yeah, it was not a ghillie suit at all. I mean, I wish it was. I wouldn't be telling the story if it was, and I wouldn't be like freaking out. And times like it just brought cold sweats into me. I mean, it's you know, I've been silent for so long. Even Snyder, we were talking about it after I made contact with you, and he goes, "Well, what makes you want to talk about it now?" I was like, "Dude, I don't have anything to worry about now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a clearance anymore. I haven't been in the military since 2011. I haven't been in law enforcement for a while, and I mean, I do security here and there, but I don't have nothing to worry about. I just want to get my story out, and people need to know they're around. They need to be aware that they're around because you know you got kids. People let their kids run around at night, and then it's probably not a good thing to let them run around. So.
Yeah, because even though I say that they're not harmful, they could be. I mean, they could hurt somebody. I think they would have to be provoked, or you know, you get a bad one or one with a bad temperament or something. But I think also it's more accepted now. We have more scientists that are on board.
Yeah,
like Dr. Jeff Meldrum.
I would love to see that collection he has in that in out there in Idaho State University. I think is where he's at. I would love to see that massive footprint collection he's got.
Yeah, the largest in the world, and he's one of the leading advocates in support of Bigfoot. And then he still teaches at the university. Like they support it. There's more support now than ever before. People aren't laughing at it like they used to.
They're actually, like you said, they're more accepting, and a lot of universities are now, you know, they're offering cryptozoology. Before it was just like, well, whatever, you know, it's like a unicorn of the modern world, and now they're accepting it, and that might be out there. And now they're finding, you know, specimens that should have been extinct, and they thought they were extinct, and now they're finding them. So it is modern. You know, you're starting to like Discovery Channel, History Channel, and stuff are starting to do programs based around it too. So I think it's more acceptable. And like I said, I honestly, I don't think they mean to cause harm at all, unless they feel trapped or endangered. That themselves are going to do what they got to do to protect themselves, just like I think we would. but like kids are, I heard like rumors like they're curious with like children. I think children see them a lot because they laugh and they play and whatnot, and it draws attention. So I think if you're going to have your kids out and about, especially out there with a bunch of woods and some of the mountains out there, you just might want to, some of these people just need to be aware. I think a lot of people know they're there. They don't want to come out publicly and admit that they're there. So,
yeah. And there's other reasons not to let your kids wander
yeah.
alone.
Yeah. Especially now. It's not back when I was a kid and we used to ride bikes and be out until, away from our parents for 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's a way different world now, but
yeah, you got to be cautious. And even as an adult, you got to hike with a partner,
yep.
try to carry if you can for protection for other reasons. But I really can't think of any more questions. And I am so excited that you came forward to share this. I know this is going to blow up, so to speak, on our channel. And, we get some trolls on there that say some rude things. And I
think everybody has trolls at some point,
I delete them, or I ban them, or
I'm not here for monetary value. I just want to get it out that, hey, this stuff happens. And maybe if by me telling my story, that other people that's been in the military and has had these experiences, maybe they'll come out and start telling their stories, and we can just get it after. These things are real. They're out there. We need to make more people aware of it. So
I agree. And maybe if we can get some laws to protect them or protect areas where we know they're at.
I know upstate New York, I can't think of the town now.
Whitehall.
Yeah, Whitehall. They have protections and some laws against it.
Well, you know why? Because they had some law enforcement see them, so it added credibility to it, and then they made a law. And there's other states that have laws as well. So I'm hoping in Kentucky we can establish laws in areas where I know they're at, so people don't try to shoot one or shoot something else by accident, a person or something.
Yeah, and like you said, I think it's going to take a body, and I just hope no one goes out just to shoot one. Because I don't think they're dangerous. I just think like they're curious. But if you pin somebody down, then they're going to become, aggressive and whatnot, and just let them roam. Like I said, I did have an M4, had a full 30 round magazine in it. I did put a round in the chamber. I never once lifted it up to aim it. I just had it laying on my lap in case I needed it. And it just turned and went up the hill, and I cleared my weapon and went back to normal. So,
yeah.
I
think a mutual respect is good for many different reasons, because you don't want to hurt them. They don't want to hurt you. If we could live side by side with these creatures, it's almost one of those things I tell people sometimes, what's going to happen if we do prove their existence? Who gets the forest? Do they get the forest, or do we get the forest then? There's the dilemma.
I honestly think the government hasn't. I think the government knows they're there. I honestly do. I don't think they can't be on military installations and protected areas by the government without them knowing.
Yeah.
I think the government doesn't acknowledge them because it's going to affect the logging community, and then you're going to have to put it down as an endangered species at this point, because we don't know how many are out there. So it's going to curb that effect. And I honestly think that's why the government hasn't acknowledged them, because then they're going to have to, they're just going to have to, what do we do now? How do we do this? Because I've seen and read plenty of encounters with loggers who have seen them and refuse to go back into the woods because of they're terrified or scared. It scares them out of their wits. So some of them don't even go back into the woods after that. But
yeah, there's a lot of hunters and hikers, and I kind of tell them it's okay. I tell them they're not going to hurt you. And I say that generally speaking, I wouldn't be afraid of them, just respect them. So I wouldn't be afraid to go in the woods, just show them respect. And I think they'll show you respect.
And I think if you get too close, them you hear them tossing stones, I think that's a warning sign. Hey, you're getting close enough to stop, back up, respect your space, respect our space. The same thing. I agree with it. It's just I think they're some of the loner ones we may see are out there as like scouts for if there is families and nesting areas. They're back and they get individuals out doing like a scout type thing, and if they feel like there's somebody coming in that could be a danger to the family or whatever, then I think that's when you start seeing them getting a little aggressive with throwing rocks or whatnot. But I think it's just a warning sign for you to stay away.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I agree. It's just to scare you off. I think they can hit you if they want to.
I think they could snap you in half if they wanted to by seeing the size of that one. I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
He could have broke every bone in my body, and there's nothing I could have done about it. So these things are definitely stronger than us. Same thing. If it, I don't know what they are. They're probably in their own category of their own. Um, but if you ever just watch a documentary on like gorillas, for instance, they have their scouts out. The silverback kind of protects everybody in the area, and he'll come at you, and then he'll just stop because he knows you're scared and or whatnot, or you don't move forward. You just kind of back away. Same, almost the same concept a little bit, but we don't have gorillas here other than zoos, as far as I know. I mean,
Yeah, there's
I know there's been some chimpanzees cut loose in Florida by accident or whatever, or escaped some facility. But other than that, I don't know of any gorillas, here in the United States. So, but that's the kind of temperament I've seen. And I'm always fascinated with just watching gorillas and how they act anyway. Even in the zoo, they know we're looking at them.
mhm.
I almost kind of see they're saying, they eat and they try to act like you're not there, but they know you're there. I think it's the same aspect that falls with Bigfoot in the forest, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, I want to thank you so much for coming forward.
You're welcome. It's the story needed to be told. I was like, only a few friends and family knew about it. I've talked about it, and um, I just needed to be told, and finally ventured out. So, thanks for
Well,
having me on.
yeah, thank you. And once it gets on there, it'll be on our YouTube and social media and such. And we'll get a lot of great feedback on it. I know we will. You'll get some trolls. Don't pay any mind to those. A lot of other people will put them in their place. And then also, if somebody gets nasty, I just ban them or delete them if I can.
In my experience, haters are gonna hate, and you just gotta turn your eye and just know what you saw is the truth and move on. So,
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank
and if you have any more questions or can think of something later, you have my number. Feel free to reach out, and I'll shoot you Snyder's information so you can get a hold of him. He said he's more than willing to talk about it.
Oh, good. That'd be a great follow-up interview because
Yeah.
that adds to, the
My
credibility.
credibility. So
Yes. So I'll definitely interview him. And then if I get any questions, I'll contact you and I'll put them in the description of, some follow-up questions and put in there. So, wow, I'm so excited. This has made my year so far.
well, it's a new year, so hopefully someone else can break it. So
Yeah. All right.
all
Well,
right.
thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Cory.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, bye.
Wow.